So it's been a long time since I've made a video. I had a massive Windows crash, caused me to reload, and I lost a lot of programs. I had to reload OBS, I had to reload Magic Online and a bunch of other stuff, so my settings are funky. Hopefully this video works out for you. Anyway, so there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. First, I've made a few significant changes, I think, to Oloro. I've really upped the disruption in the deck outside of the proactive disruption where I reach out and try to interact with their stuff without kicking back and waiting for it like I would with a counter. I've also had a great game that I want to bring up right now. I had a fantastic series, actually. I was playing against a guy here called Keepflyin, and I've actually featured his channel and he's featured mine, so you can definitely check it out if you're interested. But he was playing Yisan and I was playing Oloro, and he really pushed me hard. Game 1, he wrecked me. Game 2 was one of the closest games I've had in a really long time, other than perhaps the one I'm about to show you. I don't know though, maybe that game was even closer. I barely won. And then game 3, well, watch his videos and find out for yourself. Both game 1 is in one video and game 2 and 3 are in the other. So that's Keepflyin. So check out his stuff. I would have shown you the games from my perspective, but when my game when Windows crashed, I lost all those save files. So that's unfortunately that. Anyway, so the changes I made. I'm going to go over the game real soon here, but the changes I made, I just want to touch on them. I took out Inventor's Fair because I just had to. In order to add everything I wanted, I had to go to 30 lands, and I'm adding more cards that require colored mana, so I had to take out a colorless land. I really like the card and want to play it, but I just don't. I can't right now. Maybe we'll find a way to fit it in there in the long run, but it is a little slow anyway. The paying 4 to Demonic Tutor and attacking a land is pretty slow. Considering you've got to treat this format like type 1, would you want to make that play in type 1 is the question you have to answer yourself. If the answer is no, then maybe it needs to be cut. That said, I also cut a Felwar Stone. That's a card I would play in type 1. Unfortunately, I just needed room, and out of all the mana rocks, it's the least consistent. It doesn't always give me a color I want, unless I can get Urborg out and force black, which would still doesn't necessarily give me blue. It can be great, but I mean, I had to pull something. So that was 1, 2, and then the third card that I pulled out of the deck, I don't remember, unfortunately. But when it comes to me, I'll let you know. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I pulled those 3 cards out and I put in Divine Offering, Seal of Cleansing, and Toxic Deluge. The deck absolutely has to play Toxic Deluge. It is a must-play, mandatory card. It needed more removal. It needed more sweep. This card is both. It also has the potential to give you to be flexible with Oloro, so you can kill all their guys and keep your guy alive. It's just an amazing card. It does actually, my understanding, potentially see type 1 play at times. Divine Offering, Seal of Cleansing both have been in either type 1 or type 1-esque decks. In fact, Divine Offering was in the sideboard of the original Brian Weissman's The Deck, which the original version ran 4 Disenchants and 2 Divine Offerings in the sideboard. So it is as a card with a long resume that also works very well with Aetherflux Reservoir, Well of Lost Dreams, and Oloro, potentially getting you extra cards. It's probably the card that you could argue should be Anguished Unmaking, if a card should be Anguished Unmaking, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think having 3 turn 2 kills for the turn 1 Soul Ring just makes this deck so much stronger, and then extra sweepers in case that's not that good, in case the opponent is playing like a bunch of elves and stuff, makes this deck a lot stronger. So I mean, I have even more disruption against control. I tripled my disenchants against control, and I doubled my sweepers against creatures, and it only took a few cards to do it. Anguish Unmaking is more flexible, and it kind of does both, but it also does it a turn later. It also requires an extra mana cost. It does cost me life, which is kind of bad with Aetherflux Reservoir, but who knows? I do think the card needs to be in here, and the game I'm about to play is going to be illustrative of exactly that. Now, in this game, I actually was testing the Abyss instead of Dark Confidant. I think it's either or, but I really think that ultimately Dark Confidant is the card. One of them helps you win sometimes. One of them helps you win always. So that being Confidant. So I'm not going to put the Abyss in over Confidant, I don't think. I really want the Abyss and Moat in this deck. I love the old school cards. This is why I wish Commander had a sideboard. Both of those cards would 100% be in the sideboard. But, you know, what are you going to do? I would also actually have Anguished Unmaking in the sideboard, and then I would run Cunning Wish in the main. And so I would have a get out of jail free Cunning Wish target, and that's the way that I would do that. But you know, like I said, what are you gonna do? So anyway, this, I believe I win the dice roll here, but I'm playing against Erebos. So Erebos is sort of the anti-Oloro card, but I've got his tremendously fast hand. It's outrageously good, so I should be in good shape. I really only just need the correct disruption in order to stop Erebos. And he gets the first turn Soul Ring, and I don't have one of my 3 disenchants in my hand. Now, like I said, in this version, the Abyss is in here, not Dark Confidant, but I never draw the Abyss, so it's irrelevant to anything. And obviously, like, after the fact, I realized that at any point in the game, I would have much preferred to draw Dark Confidant. So anyway, I played Dimer's Signet here, thinking that I'm going to... Incidentally, by the way, I'm rusty and I make some misplays in this game. Maybe you'll pick up on those, but if not, I'll try to point them out when they happen. I play Signet here thinking turn 3 to Fairy, into Trinket Mage, into whatever, probably an Impulse. Seems pretty doggone good. And on the off chance my opponent does something like Ancient Tomb Mind Twist me, getting the 6 mana in play so that I can play my commander so I have at least some sort of follow-up seems pretty good as well. So he plays Erebos, which was that was kind of the predictable play that he would make there. So I go ahead and get down to Fairy, untap. So it's a 0 cost to Fairy, a 1 mana Trinket Mage, because I'm going to go get Crypt. I Crypt into Dark Tutelage, and then I Impulse thinking that... So my thought process here is I just want to find a land right now, because what I'm hoping to do is find a land that produces black, and I can get set up and get a Necropotence out next turn. And if the land I find is a fetch land, I want to fetch Sunken whatever, because I want it to come into play tapped. So I want to fetch it right now. So I go ahead and Impulse. And I see this. Fabricate, Humility, Karn, Leak. Well, Karn will get rid of Erebos, so I'm taking that. I've got tons of mana. I've got Teferi. Again, really hoping I don't get twisted. But he plays Dynamo, and that is a little bit of a head scratcher for me, because as badly as I want to get Erebos off the table, and I just do Reservoir, so I really want to get it off the table, I feel like him having access to 7 mana is just too doggone much, and so it means for me that priority on this turn. So here's my first misplay, by the way. I play Reservoir instead of Teachings this turn. But I feel like the play here is to get Karn down. So if I would have left Teachings up and then he plays a land, and then I could have, at the end of his turn, Teachings for Tithe and got Tithe. Or Teaching for Disenchant. But certainly, what the heck am I doing playing Reservoir here when he's got a Erebos in play? Like, why would I even do that? Anyway, I figure it probably doesn't matter, though. The game's probably over because, I mean, look at the board position I have. I mean, I guess I was thinking of holding Teachings only because I wanted to see if I could somehow get him to dump his bomb so that I could spell bomb so that I would be able to flash it back later. But still, this does not mana effective and just doesn't make sense. Now, I don't swing with Trinket Mage here, and I think that does make sense, because if you were to play something like the 5/5 Phyrexian guy that's black, 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 and 2, or excuse me, black, 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 black. So if you were to play a Swamp and that guy, my concern is that he would be able to attack one of my Planeswalkers, and I don't want my Planeswalkers to die, because I'm going to win the game with Planeswalkers. Unless, of course, he plays Aether Snap. What the heck? And kills both Planeswalkers in one shot. Ouch. Okay, so now... but incidentally, look at my luck with Mana Crypt. I am going to lose the flip a lot, so get used to seeing that. So down to 28 already. So I go ahead and teachings here, and I want to continue to pressure his mana base. So I'm going to go right away after Soul Ring. And while I realize I'm not going to gain any life off Divine Offering, since I probably won't be gaining life off of it later either, I'd rather use the less flexible card and just take out the Soul Ring now rather than use a disenchant. So I kind of wish Anguish Unmaking the deck because I would have it as a target to get rid of Erebos, but I don't think that's an argument for playing Anguished Unmaking. There are arguments for it, but I don't think this turn is it. At any rate, even if I had gotten that card, of course, I wouldn't have the mana to have played it. God, look how good this would have been, though, if this Erebos were not on the table. Like, if I had, I mean, I don't know. It's just frustrating. Anyway, so that's what happens, though, facing that card. So because now I have no Planeswalkers to protect, and I do have a life total that I'm concerned about, and he could potentially activate Erebos and hit me. But at this point in the game, I've drawn Swords of Plowshares. So I actually attack here as a bait, because I want him to activate his commander and swing to try to erase all the damage I'm doing to myself and make his commander vulnerable so I can get it off the table. Because once it's off the table, I'll easily make up the life that I lost using Aetherflux Reservoir. He plays Necro, which puts him just under what he needs in order to activate the commander for me to be able to remove it. Unfortunately, of course, because I killed his... well, it's exiled face down. That's weird. Because I exiled his black card earlier or whatever. Maybe he never had one. Well, regardless, he's able to over Necro for a little bit. I guess he's worried about the Trinket Mage damage? I don't know. But he makes a huge misplay here. So he's so greedy. He wants to sack the Spellbomb and draw a card rather than sacking it and killing Mystical Teachings. He should have done that way before I untapped. Because it's too late now, and... cards are just, I mean, he's got two different sources of plenty of cards. Like, this is an extra card for a black mana when he's this constrained on mana is terrible, actually, for him. It's a bad use of his mana. He should be paying life, not mana, for cards. So I draw Vindicate, and I think, okay, well, the players clearly Vindicate Necro, but if I do that, I'm giving up Teachings, because he's definitely flashing back the bomb, and I don't think I can afford to give up the Teachings. My position's too weak here. And since he misplayed and let me have it, I'm going to do nothing. Notice, again, I've lost the coin flip a number of times. I'm down to 20 already. It's very early in the game. So he tries to nihil my teachings. Now, this is risky. He's doing it main phase, which means that he could be setting me up to flash this back and then potentially, you know, Mind Twist or do some other nasty play. So I'm worried about it. So as a counter ploy to insulate myself against whatever it is he might be doing, I play a psychological game with him where I Mystical Teachings in response for Force of Will. Now, he doesn't know that I don't have a blue card in my hand, but I do. So now he's going to feel like, hopefully, he needs to play two relevant cards, or he needs to use a bait spell and then play his big spell. And since he's super low on mana, that's going to be hard for him to do, and it might cause him to delay. And the thing is, with Necropotence, you want to be dumping tons of cheap spells as fast as you can. You don't really want to play like one big spell, because then Necropotence is worse than just having a draw step. In almost every way, other than the fact that maybe you get an extra land. But it's almost worse. It certainly takes a lot of the sting out of facing one out. So kind of using this to talk him into playing the game I need him to be playing to win is the strategy here. And I don't know if it works. I do know that he pays a mana there to take an extra card right away, and then Null Rods me. So if Null Rod was the bait spell, holy smokes, what's the follow-up? Because that is fantastic against me. Hugely painful right now. So he is just crushing me with these huge value anti-control plays. Aether Snap. He's got Soul Ring and Thran Dynamo, Erebos, Necropotence, Null Rod. It's just insane. And the other thing that's crazy is he's running Soul Ring, Nihil, Spellbomb, Thran Dynamo, Null Rod? Oh, all right, man. Luckily, I do draw a Merchant Scroll here, which he sees, so now he knows for sure I can Force a Will, of course. At least I have that threat. And then because Null Rod is just way, way too challenging for me, I have to Vindicate it. Notice I lost the coin flip again. I'm now at 14 life with a fetch land out and a lot of ways to deal damage to myself. I go ahead and merchant scroll here. So here's the other gambit that I'm running. Again, he doesn't know that this is my only blue spell, and I have to get... I'm running... My thought is twofold here. I've got to get Erebos off the table. So I figure Merchant Scroll for Cyclonic Rift gives me a long-term plan to potentially get it off the table if he doesn't wreck my hand now or disrupt me with like a duress or something. But I have to take that risk because of tempo. At 14 life, I don't have time to sit on the scroll, which is the card I'd rather force with. I have to set up this way. Force a will if he plays something that's lethal or near lethal, and otherwise try to use Rift to get out of the bind that I'm in. I've got to get Erebos off the table because I need Reservoir to go online and counteract the amount of damage that this deck actually intentionally does to itself. Not that I want to hurt myself, but just because normally it's I'm trading life for cards and then getting free life off the commander and actually trading nothing for cards. So anyway, I attack here again. All he needs to do is play any card. His commander goes live on five black icons in the casting cost. So all I need him to do is play any black permanent, and I can Swords the Plowshares as commander. So this is at 14 life. Like, surely he wants to play something with black in the casting cost and smash me down to 9, and then hope that I lose the flip, go to 6. And then Dark Tutelage myself to death. Maybe Sackland 5, maybe Vault 4, you know. Force of Will is another life that I'll lose. So, like, I'm trying desperately to get the dadgum Erebos off the table. And he just doesn't take the bait. He just necros for a few cards and says go. So I go ahead and fetch at the end of his turn for a tapped Godless Shrine. Because I actually am going to need... I need to have extra white in case I draw a card that requires white, which I will want to play. I want to always have swords up because this is the fact that I could get smashed for 5 is super dangerous right now. So I always want to be able to plow that if that kind of thing would happen. But also because I need triple black, so black, 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 and still a white remaining, so that I can get my own necro down. Theoretically, although I'm at 13, so I don't know. We'll see. And I lose the flip, of course. Take another point of damage. So 8, 7. So yeah, draw a disenchant here. I guess that's nice. Again, I'm trying to bait his commander out. And because I have to hardcast Force of Will if I'm going to use it at all, I say done. Of course, it might be nice to just rift him here. He's going to draw some extra cards at the end of my turn, which gives him more choices on his turn. But what I really want to do is just Swords the commander. And that's not going to be an option for me because he points A. There is the Mind Twist. So, man, he's got so many aggressive cards. So he points the Mind Twist for 5 at my face. Clearly, I have to do something about that. I've got to get Erebos off the table. I'm just about dead. So I need to gain as much life as possible also. And I need to do it now. So the play here, I can't wait for a big rift. I'm going to have to little rift the Erebos back to his hand. I won't gain life from the Reservoir, but I will gain life off of the Force of Will. And then the other thing I should have done here, possibly, maybe Swords the Trinket Mage, perhaps. Gain 3 life plus 2. I don't know. But I decide not to. So he ends his turn. And I have no defensive cards. And actually, you know, I did think about it, but I think that the reason I didn't was he might play his commander and another way to make it a creature, and then I can plow it that way. So, okay, I've got a window to potentially get out of this bind. I stack my effects so I gain my life first. Then I take 2 damage from Grim, so it cancels. I'm still at 9. And I lose the flip again. Oh my gosh. So I'm down to 5. Drawing a Preordain. So the trick is, of course, I want to stack as many... I want to play all my sorceries, and with the last sorcery speed effect on the stack, I want to stack a bunch of instants with the last life gain from sorcery speed effect, and then stack all the instants, Reservoir triggers, and then I want to resolve them all at once so that each one of them gives me more life than it should, because they don't check life gain until resolution. So if I were to play Preordain, for example, and then with the Flux on the stack, I play Disenchant, put the Flux on the stack, play Swords, put the Flux on the stack, then when you resolve, the Flux will give me 3, 3, and 3, rather than 1, 2, 3. because it will check the total number upon resolution. So, of course, I'm going to try to play, multiple sorceries first, and the first one I want to play is the one that gives me the most options. So, Preordain into Thran Dynamo Command Tower, both to the bottom. I find a tithe, another instant that I can potentially stack to increase the life gain this turn. So we'll go ahead and play Grim. And I believe I make another mistake this turn. So first of all, I should have attacked because I'm planning to attack here. That was a mistake. Secondly, I believe I cast Necro. And that's the last sorcery speed card that I plan to play. And I don't respond to it. I think the reason I don't respond to it is because I want to tithe and get another land down and then do tricks. But I don't know if that may have been the wrong thing to do. Anyway, it's what I did. So I go ahead and tithe now, so I'm up to gaining a decent amount of life. I can actually get Prairie Stream here since I have 2 basics. Play it. And then I was thinking I would play Well of Lost Dreams, but the more I think about it, I decide, okay, I am going to play Well of Lost Dreams. I'm putting Aetherflux Reservoir on the stack, and this is why I should have attacked. And then I'm going to put Swords of Plowshares on the stack, put Reservoir on the stack a second time, resolve the Reservoir, gain 5 life, gain 2 off Swords of Plowshares, gain 6 life, gain 2 off Swords of Plowshares, gain 6 life again. The well finally comes down, and now I have enough life to actually Necropotence. So I was down to 6 life, and I jumped up to 29. Aetherflux Reservoir is insane. Now, I have gotten rid of most of my answers to his commander, and I didn't even find a counterspell or really anything really good to protect myself, but I did at least get a Terminus, so if I can get him to activate his commander, maybe I can deal with what's going on over there. And this whole time, he's got Necro out, but now that I have some life to work with, a little bit more than he has, in fact, and I have Necro, and I have way more mana, I have the ability to... I'm not falling behind on cards, so and I'm ahead on mana, so I'm theoretically winning this game. But it is a really tough situation. So even that being said, I want to get rid of the Necro now, right away. Force him to make whatever decisions he's going to make regarding however many cards he wants to set aside before he knows what else I'm going to do with the turn. So I go ahead and just kill it. And then I think this was a mistake here. I don't know. So I play Hallowed Fountain tap. Playing the Worn Power Stone was fine off of the vault, but I should have played Sunken Hollow here. There's no reason to play a tapped land here for the eventual, even though it leaves me safe with a counter. The correct answer here was to play a untapped land so that I have 4 mana up, so that if I do not counter anything, I can untap Grim Monolith. Alternatively, if I draw a 2-drop off of Necro, I could potentially play a 2-drop and a counterspell. The way I've set myself up now is safe from a Wasteland. If he Wastelands me, I can still counter. But it doesn't really think... It's not good thinking in terms of what I'm going to do. And as you'll see, the second and third order effects actually impact the next couple of turns. So first of all, I did draw another 2-drop, which means that had I had a second mana up, and he has 7 cards in hand and 7 mana out and has not played Cabal Coffers yet, which means he could potentially drop a ton of mana into play and go crazy. So having 2 counters would be extremely relevant right now. So first of all, right now, that's obviously bad. But the play he makes is Gravestorm, which forces me to remove a card from my graveyard on his turn, or he draws a card. He's already drawing all the cards he wants off Erebos, so I do not care about that at all. Plus, I have tons of food for it. Even though I have a will going, I'm potentially at some point here. And of course, I could will and disenchant it if I need to. It's going to be a long time for that card matters. And then he plays Ob Nixilis. And of course, I'm glad he plays the Gravestorm Ob combo because now his commander is live. And I'm at 20. I've got enough life. I can absorb a hit. So the right answer for me here, if I had the 4th mana, would be to untap the Grim. And you'll see how it affects the next turn. But looking at Ob, it lets him draw extra cards, which he could already do off his commander. So I don't care. Lets him kill a creature, which I'm not going to play. So I don't care. And it lets... him give me an emblem that causes me to take damage whenever a player draws a card, which I could care about, but it's a long time before I care about that in terms of the way that this game is going. I have will to bounce that thing at some point. I need his commander active for my terminus, and and at any rate, I don't draw cards because I have Necro and Dark Tutelage, which neither of which draws cards. I don't have to pay for well. So the only time I would take damage is if he used this, whereas if he were drawing cards, and it might not be enough to matter. So for all those reasons, I let it go. But boy, would I like to untap a Grim here, and now look what happens. So this turn, I can terminus his commander down. I do play my Sunken Hollow, finally realizing the mistake I made. Necro for a bit, and I'm done. Alright, so his turn. Now look what happens. If I have to counterspell twice, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm only left with 1, 2, 3 mana this turn, which means I cannot untap Grim Monolith again 2 turns in a row because I didn't do it on the turn when I should have. That's only if he can make me counter twice, and his commander costs a ton, so there really isn't too much for 2 mana that I would have to counterspell, so it's highly unlikely. So I'll go ahead and counter his commander, then I screw up and filter it through a Dimer Signet. I actually have enough mana if I only have to counter once to untap Grim, and I just assume that I'm going to do that here, which is a huge mistake because look, Cabal Coffers. Now if he would have attacked and cleared my mana pool before he played the Coffers, I wouldn't be able to, I would have had to untap the Grim in response potentially, and I probably wouldn't have because that's the card I was fearing anyway. So here comes the big whammy. What's going to come down from 7 mana? I assume it's like Karn or something, but it's actually a 6 mana play. It's Caged Sun, and when I see that, I'm pumping the fist. A, he didn't clear my mana pool, so he did not capitalize on my mistake, and I can finally untap Grim Monolith. But look how painful it was that I didn't do this sooner. B, I've got Phyrexian Metamorph and a Yawgmoth's Will. That Caged Sun is going to do wonders, but not for him. So, draw. And then in my haste, so I go ahead and actually pay 2 life, which is insane, considering how much damage I've taken this game, to play Metamorph and copy his Sun. But I have more important uses for my mana than preventing 2 points of damage to myself, or 2 points of life lost. So I play Polluted Delta from hand, which is stupid. I'm about to will. I should have just played Bloodstained March. They both fetched the same thing. But basically, I couldn't remember if I had another target for Marsh that I would want to get. I didn't want to go through my exiled pile and see if Underground Sea was in it, and I was in a bit of a hurry because I only had, you can see, 6 minutes. So even though this was a bit of a misplay, there was a thought behind it. It was basically, I know Polluted Delta can at a minimum get me blue, and the only thing I want to get with Caged Sun is sources of blue. So that's why I played it instead of willing into the Marsh. So anyway, I go ahead and Delta, and then I see the Underground Sea and realize, duh, had I had the time to think about it or used the time to think about it, I would have made that play. And then I make another kind of misplay here. What I should have done was tap Power Stone Crypt into the Signet and then use black and colorless to cast Will. Instead, I'm wasting a blue right now for no reason at all. But really awesome stuff's going to happen. So what do you think the play is here? I've got an active will running. I can't play a land. How do I play this out correctly? I'll give you a moment to think about it, and then I'll tell you what I would have done. So if you paused it to think, great. Otherwise, you probably already see it. But the play I should have made or was planning to do, first thing right away, Vindicate Cabal Coffers. That thing's got to get off the table. He can't have, I mean, he already has 8, 9 mana next turn. He can't have more than that. So we got to get Cabal Coffers off the table. Secondly, we've got to get Caged Sun off the table. So, and then I want to preordain and maximize my choices. So the play was Vindicate, preordain, and decide exactly what I'm going to do there. Take the good card, hopefully, right? Merchant Scroll, and then after those 3 cards have been played, with Scroll's Aetherflux trigger on the stack, cast Tithe with that trigger on the stack, respond to it with Disenchant, and potentially with that trigger on the stack, respond to it with Rift. If I had any more mana, I could actually respond with Counterspell on one of my own spells. And so if you actually do the math, I have played, let's see, what did I play? I played Gauge Sun, so that was 1 spell for the turn. I played Will, which is 2, so that would have been 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like 9 spells, and potentially 9 spells. And the fourth one would have been responded to. So the first 3 I would have gained 1, 2, 3, and then I would have gained 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. If you do the math, that puts me way over the life total. So on this turn, I go from 14 to killing him. And before I can even do it, my opponent gives up. So it doesn't even matter that I don't have control of this game. Aetherflux Reservoir, the absolute all-star bomb of the game. Even though my opponent had Erebos out hosing me for most of the game, it took me from 6 to 25 in a single turn, and then from 14 to over 50 life, and I can kill my opponent, I believe, in the single turn. Yes, 45 plus the other life was more than enough to nuke my opponent to death. So a grand total of 45 plus 6. And then 6 to 25 is another 19. So 46 and 19 is 56, 65, 65 life for a 4 mana investment. Oh, and also 50 damage to my opponent's face. Kind of amazing, super cool. Definitely like the marquee Oloro card. Cage Sun's very interesting. I think that's kind of a neat card, although if you get to 6 mana, it's probably just win more. But it certainly is an interesting card in this deck. Something I might consider down the road. And if I were to play Cage Sun, then I would want to run more duels, so I'd run the more lands that produce blue, of course. I might cut Godless Shrine and put in... Anyway, I'm musing now. I'm musing. So, I would like Anguished Unmaking in here somewhere. I'm definitely interested in whatever suggestions you have, whether or not you think it goes in or doesn't go in. If you think it goes in, where you think it might go. I kind of like having the balance that I have in terms of what I've got. By color, it's exactly even. I don't have too much reliance on one or the other. 28 blue spells, still a pretty good number for Force of Will to work with. It's over a quarter of the deck, so as long as I have a couple cards in hand, I should have another blue spell, hopefully. 27 other possible ones. So yeah, if you can come up with a slot for Anguish Unmaking, I kind of prefer that it be a 3-drop. I like to keep my balance. I really like to keep my curve low, or maybe a 4-drop, maybe something more expensive perhaps. And then the other thing is, should I put Serra Ascendant back in the deck? If you look at the games I linked to in the comments against the gentleman Keepflyin, you'll see how insanely good Serra Ascendant can be. And it's actually quite good with Toxic Deluge, because often it'll be the only thing that lives. And Deluge can clear a path. It's just generally awesome. So does that belong in the deck as well? I actually had kind of a crazy thought, which is I could pull out land. Maybe it's time to dump Land Tax Scroll Rack. If I dump Land Tax Scroll Rack, then what I do is so I'll show you the swap that I'm considering. We dump these, right? And then what we do is we run these guys, Ascendant and Anguished, and then we run these guys. Now, if I drop the tax rack, I can actually kind of smooth my mana base out a little bit better by running these cards: Drowned Catacomb, Glacial Fortress, and we just take out, say, we take out like snow-covered islands or basic islands. You know, we'll just assume we take these out. So what I'm proposing as a cut, and what I'm interested in from my viewers as an exchange, is what do you think about this swap? We put in this and this and this and this. We take out this and this and this and this. So And my thought here is basically as good as land tax is against control, ascendant can be good against control because it forces them to an early ascendant because it forces them to react to something that wastes their time. On the other hand, it kind of gives them a target for things that would normally be dead. It's not great against control. It does force them to find an answer before they can play a planeswalker in most cases, though. So it's kind of neat. Anguish Unmaking is clearly good against control, but Ascendant and Anguish Unmaking are also good against aggro. These are just good in the sense that, you know, drawing tons of cards is awesome. Fixing, mana fixing. I mean, all those times where I'm like, please draw a scroll rack because I'm holding, you know, 5 lands or irrelevant cards and I want to fix my hand in one shot. And of course, tax being one of those cards where you can literally mulligan to you know 1, and if the 1 card's land tax and your first card is, you know, a source of white, you're suddenly like, I might be able to win this game, you know. And there's almost no other card that's like that. Although Serra Ascendant theoretically is, it's a lot slower than, you know, the way that land tax has an impact on the game. So what do you think about these changes? Please tell me in the comments, and I'll think about making them. But until I get the answer, we're going to stick with the tax rack classic old school combo, and that is a wrap. So thank you for watching. I hope you're entertained, and I'll see you next time.